So who would have thought that a key element to Mr. Glass's plan is Halloween Resurrection? Glass stars Bruce Willis, James McAvoy, Samuel L. Jackson, and is directed by M. Night Shyamalan. What's up, guys? Welcome to a movie that is my most anticipated of 2019. I know we're already in January, but I love this superhero trilogy that M. Night Shyamalan has. Unbreakable completely floored me when I saw that almost 20 years ago, which is crazy. Stroke of genius, spoiler alert by the way, stroke of genius to release Split, not telling anybody that it is in the universe of Unbreakable, and then just unveiling that crazy ending at the end of the movie. Probably one of my favorite twist endings out of all of his twist endings. What I loved about it was when I was watching that in the theater, not everybody got the twist. And so I remember me and my son were just jumping for joy when that Unbreakable music just started slowly chiming in, and then we see Bruce Willis sitting there in the diner. Talk about such a cool twist to unveil on the crowd. So anyway, it was inevitable that the third part of this trilogy, Glass, would eventually come, and here we are. It really centers around all three, but let me just say, Mr. Glass definitely has his time to shine in this movie. But first, quick plot synopsis. This takes place shortly after the events of Split. If you remember, we'll just say Kevin, because there are 23 different names. But for the sake of not wasting your time, we'll just say Kevin. Kevin is still on the loose, of course, after the events at the end of Split. At the beginning of this movie, he's doing what he does. You know, he has these cheerleaders, and he has them held captive. And, you know, we're first greeted with, I believe, Patricia, who is the feminine voice of Kevin. And then quickly after that, the Beast comes out. And if you remember in Split, we didn't see the Beast until the end of the movie. The Beast plays a major part in this story. But while this is all happening, what I really loved is we got to catch up with David Dunn and what's going on in his world, because like I said, this is some almost 20 years since the events. And one thing that I really wanted to happen in this movie was the return of Joseph, his son, played by Spencer Treat Clark, because he was such a major part of Unbreakable. You know, this was this kid who looked up to his father and believed that his father was a superhero. And he helped him throughout the course of that movie discover his powers and all that. And luckily, he plays a major part in this movie, actually. He works behind the scenes, kind of the tech guy, and he's the eyes and ears of David Dunn's operation. You know, David Dunn has his own security business now, naturally. And so eventually he crosses paths with Kevin, who is in the form of Hedwig, which is probably my favorite of the personalities of the character in this movie. Hedwig shines so bright in this movie, hilarious. And what a great way to break the tension while not, taking over the story. So early in the movie, these two cross paths. They go head to head, and then they are caught. We've seen that in the trailer, right? This character, Dr. Ellie Staple, leads this movement to capture really superheroes or people who think they're superheroes. That is pretty much the plot of this throughout. She's trying to convince David Dunn and Kevin and Mr. Glass, who is already captured, that they are having delusions. They are not actually superheroes. And through her treatments, they can be healed. Now, before I go any further, I have to talk about some spoilers in this movie. So I will talk about them at the end of this review, but just be warned, there are quite a few reviews out there for Glass right now, so I gotta talk some spoilers. And I'm not gonna make a second video just to talk spoilers. Now, my experience going to see this movie, I went and seen this Thursday night with the plan of releasing a review on Thursday night. As soon as I was done with this movie, I could not give a review for this. This was one of those, I guess you could call it polarizing types of films that still really just needed to percolate. You know, I was really processing that ending more than anything. And I wanted to go see it again, so I went and seen it again last night. And thank God I did, because knowing everything that unfolded the first time I watched it made everything in the second watch that much more enjoyable. And I even posted this on like social media. A lot of the critics, you know, these are guys that got those advanced screenings, and they went into this movie and they gave their knee-jerk reactions. And I think a good percentage of those people probably were like me. They probably were a little bit foggy when they came out of the theater, but they felt, hey, I got to get that review out, right? Got to get those YouTube views. And I have a feeling in time, when people eventually see this movie again, if they haven't already, they're going to grow to appreciate it. Because when you step back and look at all three movies, this whole world that's been created by M. Night Shyamalan, we know that M. Night has stated that this is the last of the trilogy. The ending makes much more sense to me, actually. Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. We're going to get into that final act here, but just to quickly foot stomp this, I think because M. Night Shyamalan is such a masterful storyteller, that he was able to put, some key scenes at the very end of this. It made it all worthwhile. Specifically, that last scene with Mr. Glass. That Mr. Glass had ultimately won the whole thing, giving his life. That's what made the whole thing worth it. There are some slight issues I had, but the issues are really just things that a fan like me wanted to happen, because we all have our investments in these characters, right? And the elephant in the room here is Bruce Willis's character, David Dunn. How could you not love David Dunn? He's one of the most likable characters I think ever created on screen. You root for the guy. He's the silent type. He doesn't want attention. And who can't relate to that in this world, especially today, because everybody wants attention. So seeing him die was the hardest blow. I don't think seeing Kevin die was the biggest deal, but seeing David Dunn die, that was the hardest thing to accept. And I think that's part of the reason why people didn't like that ending. But first, let's start off with the characters. We'll jump right into David Dunn since we were just talking about him. Bruce Willis, with his past few years, he has kind of phoned in a lot of his performances. Luckily, he really just puts back on the poncho with ease in this movie. It's like he didn't miss a beat with the character of David Dunn. He isn't given too much to play with in this movie, because this is, three different characters. This isn't his movie. And I guess that's another reason why you kind of have to be forgiving of that ending. That opening scene with him, doing what he does best. I like that M. Night really put a light on his powers, because everybody thinks when he goes head to head with Kevin, or the Beast, really, that he's going to be overpowered, but he's not. He is able to stand toe to toe with the Beast and is a worthy opponent, thankfully. But James freaking McAvoy, my God, there's no way that they're going to nominate him for an Oscar for this, because it is that type of movie. It's already gotten low ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of things are not in his favor, but I would say I would put his performance in this movie against any Oscar-winning actor, and I think it stands toe-to-toe. I am dead serious about that, people. He is even better in this movie than he was in Split, because he has to change personalities on a dime, and he'll do it like 5 times in a scene, and just seamlessly. The guy is so amazing. He can handle so many different accents, so many different personas. I can't give the guy enough praise. James McAvoy really just impressed the hell out of me in this movie. And he does steal like most of the show, really. I talked about one of the characters I loved, Hedwig. I saw this with a big audience the second time, and I will say they were laughing their asses off at so many of the scenes with Hedwig. He is this 9-year-old kid. And the interesting thing about Hedwig is he is always 9 years old. He doesn't grow up. So for year after year after year after year, 9-year-old kid. And Mr. Glass, I love that scene where Mr. Glass tells him, that's your superpower. You see the world as it really is, not like an adult. You are purely innocent. And who wouldn't want that superpower? And if you remember in Split, he only used like 9 of those 23 personalities. I'm pretty sure he threw another like 5 or 6 of them in the bunch with the existing 9 for this movie. And then, of course, the character of Mr. Glass, I think, is my favorite out of this movie. Just completely genius. I love how for like the first half of the movie, he doesn't say a word. Probably even more, actually. And so much so that you start to think that maybe this guy is an invalid. He is one step ahead of everybody, including the Horde, which we will get to the Horde, throughout this whole movie. And we all love characters like that, There's so many moments in this movie where like he's able to escape. Nobody can dare suspect it. And I mentioned Halloween Resurrection because the actor that played the orderly that's like a dick to him is Luke Kirby, who was in Halloween Resurrection. And you know me, if something is connected to Halloween, I gotta mention it, right? But I just thought that was cool that, you know, Luke Kirby played the jerk in this movie, and he was kind of like a bad boy in Halloween Resurrection. One of the best scenes in the movie actually is when he is provoking Mr. Glass, and Mr. Glass is just sitting there staring at him, and he's got this flashlight and he's holding it over his legs, and he's stating that if I drop this, it'll break your legs, and you know he's basically flexing on it, and Mr. Glass doesn't give a shit. Now, Ellie Staple, played by Sarah Paulson, was an interesting character in this, actually. This was, I guess, the leader of the Horde. And so throughout the whole movie, she's trying to convince these characters that they're not superheroes. And at a certain point in this movie, I thought, what if the twist is that they aren't superheroes? And I was going to be super pissed about that if that was the case. And it wouldn't make sense. But in the end, we find out that she actually does believe that they're superheroes. That the mission of the Horde is to capture all superheroes and kill them to keep the balance, I guess, with mankind. And ultimately, they succeed. They do kill David Dunn, Mr. Glass, and Kevin. Now, here's the controversial thing. Here's the thing that really separates this movie from good to bad for a lot of people on their first viewing. Killing all three of these characters, which Ellie Staple and the Horde succeeded in doing. Even I, when I first watched this movie, as these events were unfolding, I was like, no, don't kill David Dunn. Don't kill Mr. Glass. You know, I was really pissed off about it. You know, I was going through all these emotions as I was watching it. And then, that night when I went home, this movie would not leave my head, and I started questioning things like, maybe that was the most logical ending to this trilogy. I started thinking about Unbreakable and Split, and when I did that, it all started making sense. And so I went and seen it again, and like I said earlier in the video, when I went and seen this movie again, I loved it. I loved the ending. I think if they gave us that Marvel DC superhero big battle ending at the end, it would have been cliche. And you know what? This is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and M. Night's going to do what the hell M. Night wants to do. Otherwise, it's not an M. Night movie. And I love that about this movie. I think, guys, we have almost a perfect trilogy here. I really do. And I think in years to come, people are going to appreciate Glass. You know, when they do their marathons and they watch all three of these movies together, they go together so perfectly. And I think the big thing we got to remember too is these characters didn't die for nothing. In the end, Mr. Glass wins the whole thing. You know, his goal is to expose the superheroes to humanity and let everybody know that, hey, if you are a person with powers, it's okay to come out. You know, that was the ultimate message in this movie, and it was awesome. Now, originally, guys, one of my cons of this was, like I said earlier, David Dunn. I love that character so much that it broke my heart to watch him die. But in the end, to me, it's not a con. That was the logical conclusion to the character. I think he was handled with grace in the movie. Sure, I wanted to see a little bit more of him, but I struggled with this rating. I was going to give this a super high purchase worthy, but you know, I've been sitting here pondering this movie, even while I've been doing this review. I got to give this a try on the now. I thought this movie was phenomenal. Actually, I thought this movie was so refreshing. I liked how it was split into three different parts. And, you know, it wasn't a cliche superhero movie that has like opening action scene, character moments, then two more action scenes. No, this was a very cerebral type of final chapter in this whole trilogy, and I loved it. So guys, I know we're going to get a good discussion going on in the comments for this movie because there's a lot of opinions floating around out there. I want to know what you think about Glass. And also let me know if you've seen this movie more than once this weekend, because if you haven't, I would suggest you go watch it again. Also, guys, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free Fall Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.